All right, y'all, in this video, we're going over fantasy points per game at the quarterback position. I think it's super important that we understand what we're getting from our players. You don't always want to just draft on names. You want to find out who's been producing. So we're going over last year's rankings and looking at the quarterback position and seeing who was able to consistently provide some type of fantasy points for you each and every week. Without further ado, let's get into these quarterbacks fantasy football points per game. All right, so let's go ahead and start it at number 12 in fantasy points per game for the quarterback position. And we're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence averaged 17.9 fantasy points per game, and that's based on a 6 passing per touchdown. 17.9 is a lot lower than what a lot of people would think. Trevor Lawrence, especially in dynasty leagues, is definitely being drafted quite high, but I mean, there's 11 quarterbacks scoring more points per game than he is, and that's with me taking out Sam Howell, who averaged 19.3, but he was only there in 1 game. So everybody I have going here at least played 2 games or more, and so we'll kind of go based off of that. Now, Trevor Lawrence did put up 33.4 points in week 14. Other than that, he had quite a few 27s. He had 27.8 in week 15. He had 24.9 in week 12. He had 24.9 in 6 and 25.2 in week 3. So there's 4 weeks that he did score 20 plus points, which is great, but you know, they have 18 weeks in football, 17 games played. Now, out of 17 games, only 4 of those have, or I should say 5 counting the 33, 5 of those games was 20 points or more. I mean, when you're talking about there's 12 games in the season that he's going to be scoring less than 20 points in a game, that's not something that you're really excited to go about. Now, Trevor Lawrence does get Calvin Ridley back from the suspension that he was in, so does that help increase some of his production? But 17.9 is something that we look for Trevor Lawrence to type of outproduce and to type of just kind of grow from where he was as he matures and becomes a better quarterback. 17.9 just isn't going to get done for the talent of Trevor Lawrence. You want to see Trevor Lawrence in the 20s. You know, if we're looking at the top 6 quarterbacks, those are in the 20. You know, those are in the tier 2s when you start getting in the 20 points per game. But right now, Trevor Lawrence is at number 12 in tier 3 for me for these quarterbacks. Now, let's go ahead and move over to number 11 in Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins with 18.0 points average fantasy per game. That's, again, 6 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins has got Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in fantasy football, so that definitely helps out. Kirk Cousins only threw for over 20 points 4 times last season, once reaching 34.4 in week 15, but he needs to produce a lot more too. He's getting a little bit older. He's not one of these young guns like a Trevor Lawrence, but 18.0 with Justin Jefferson, we just need to see more from him. He lost Adam Thielen as of right now. They're going to have KJ Osborne now slotting as a number 2 wide receiver unless they add something into the draft. But Kirk Cousins at 18.0 points, he lands in tier 3 at number 11. So let's move over to number 10. We have Tua Tagovailoa is 18.4 points per game. He just needs to stay healthy. He's getting a little bit too much of the concussions. He did have a 40-point game in week 2, which it's pretty nice for his outlook. Also had a 29.2 point game in week 8, but he just needs to stay consistent. He has weapons everywhere all over the field, and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, he's got the means to produce at a high level. He just needs to be more consistent, and then he needs to be able to stay out of concussion protocol. But Tua, another young quarterback, I look for him to improve as long as he can stay healthy and on the field. He should be able to improve on that 18.4 points per game just based on just the talent around him in general. Now, the next guy at number 9, I think some people might be surprised about, that's going to be Daniel Jones. He came in at 18.4 fantasy points per game last season. He has no one to throw the ball to, but now they ended up adding Darren Waller. Hopefully get some good wide receivers in the draft. They still have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, but he was able to put up 18.4 points per game last season. And it didn't start out too hot for him. I mean, he had started out with 17, 13, 14, 12, 13. That's how he started the season last year. He ended up kind of salvaging it just a little bit with 36 points, a couple games, 3 games over 20 or 4 games over 20. So he was able to type of salvage it just a little bit, but A lot of people wouldn't look at Daniel Jones and look at 18.4 points, but he is able to add some points on the ground with his feet, so that does help. But hopefully he can get a little bit of help on the wide receiver side, and if he does that, we can even look for Daniel Jones to type of improve. He got a new deal, so he will be the quarterback of the future for the New York Giants. So now they just need to get him some help so he can improve on that 18.4 fantasy points per game. Now at number 8, we have another surprise, would be Geno Smith. A lot of people thought, they wrote off Geno Smith, thought he was kind of a bum, and I'm not really too sold that he is not just a one and done type of guy, but we have to see he's at 18.5 points, a little bit better than Daniel Jones, but he is getting a little bit older as well. But he's got some weapons in the backfield. You got Kenneth Walker back there. He's got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. He's got a lot of good deep throws with him. I mean, he has one of these things where he's more of a consistent in that 20-point range, and on some weeks he's scoring 7.1 like he did in week 2. So somebody you really can't depend on week in and week out for the most point, because you're going to be under those 20 points a game. Somebody I'm not too excited to roster myself. But let's go ahead and go over to the last quarterback in tier 3 here. Coming in at number 7, we have Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray started off the season actually quite well, over 20 points per game, but I think the week 14 that he got hurt, he only had 0.7, really hurt his average. He should be over 20 points per game. He's electric when he's on the field. He knows what he's doing. 18.9 points. He's right on the threshold of a tier 2 type of quarterback for fantasy points per game. But I mean, he just needs to stay healthy. He needs to be on the field. They're gonna want to have one of the top picks next year, so I don't know if they're going to rush him back to really be the quarterback for this football team this year. So we're going to have to play that wait and see game, but right now he does land in tier 3 at 18.9 points. So let's go ahead and go over to the tier 2 now. At number 6, we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson coming in at 20.3 points as of right now. Has not signed a new deal, but I fully expect him to be signed up with the Ravens. Now they got Odell Beckham as his number 1 wide receiver there. Lamar Jackson, 20.3 points. Most of it comes on the ground with his feet. He was able to put up a couple 40 burgers in week 2 and week 3 at 42.6 and 40.4. So he's able to get you those type of dominating performances. I just want to see him to be able to stay healthy and to be able to have some more weapons. That way he can really start producing at even a higher level for you. So let's go in now in the top 5 here, still staying in tier 2. We're going to go in Justin Fields. Justin Fields comes in at 20.5 fantasy points per game. And again, he started really slow too. I mean, I'm talking about games under 10 points per game. He's had 3 games last season under 10 points per game, a 9.8, a 6.9, and a 9.9. That's not even counting one, and they had 10.2. So there's only a couple games towards the end of the season he started playing a little bit better. He put up a couple 40 burgers, but I think maybe people started figuring his game out. I mean, really all he was doing was running the ball. He's not a very good thrower as of right now from what I can see, but he did average 20.5 points. Somebody that I would not recommend you really going out and trying to get. You really want to get one of these top 4 quarterbacks. Those are the cream of the crop, and that's kind of where you want to stay. So coming in at number 4, we have Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's averaging 21.7 points per game. He's got the electric Jamar Chase. He's got T. Higgins. He's got a lot of weapons around him. He's multiple games he scored over 30 points per game. That's what you want. He's had a couple down games, maybe at 11 points, 18 points, 16 points. So that's kind of what's bringing down his average just a little bit. But at 21.7 points per game, that's kind of what you're looking at for your quarterback. You want them to get 20 plus points, and Joe Burrow is one of the best in the game. Just how he does it. So let's go ahead and go to number 3. We're going to talk about Josh Allen. Josh Allen, the last quarterback here in tier 2, putting up 24.3 points per game. Josh Allen, we all know what he can do. I mean, he tips the iceberg almost at 30 points per game in a lot of these games that we see him producing. There's a couple of those games that he has like 19 points, which is kind of dropping down his average a little bit. But Josh Allen can get it done on his feet. He can get it done through the air. He is a premier quarterback, and I know a lot of people love having Josh Allen on your team, but he is a tier 2 quarterback right now here for me, averaging 24.3 points last season per game. So let's go ahead and go to tier 1 here. We got the number 2 quarterback. We're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes averaging 25.2 points per game, and I'm telling you, those quarterbacks that can get you 25 plus week in and week out are the ones that you want. Now, he's not really a boom bust type of quarterback. He's pretty consistent. I mean, he's scoring pretty much anywhere between 27 to 30 points quite often. He had a couple 19-point games and a 17 and an 18, which probably brought it down a little bit, but he can easily get you 30 points per game. I see him to even get more impressive numbers even next year. Travis Kelce is getting a little bit older, but he's not really slowing down on the field. He is the man. Patrick Mahomes, you will never go wrong. Even though he lands on as the 2nd points per game quarterback, you can't go wrong with him. He's normally drafted number 1 overall in most redraft leagues as far as the quarterbacks go. So without further ado, let's go over the number 1 fantasy points per game producer last season, and that was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts put up 25.6 points per game. He kind of came through for a lot of people. He scored 30 plus points multiple times in this season. He can get it done on the ground. He can get you a bunch of rushing touchdowns. He can get it done through the air. The couple games that he didn't produce for you, 17 points, 16.9, 20 points, 9.5 points, is when they're kind of blowing out the other team. So you just don't see, if it's a close game, Jalen Hurts is going to produce for you at a high level. If they're blowing out the other team, they're not going to use him as much, and you're going to kind of hurt that. But for the most part, week in and week out, he is the most consistent fantasy points per game quarterback that you are going to end up with, and he's a good target to get in 2023. All right, now to sum everything up here, we got Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes as the top 2 quarterbacks on this list. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, and Lamar Jackson all in the 20s. We ended up with Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, and then Trevor Lawrence coming in at number 12 and for quarterbacks fantasy points per game. As always, thank you for watching the video as we continue to pump out more and more content to help you just dominate your leagues, making sure we're delivering on the best content we possibly can to help prepare you, to help get you ready in this off season, so that way you can go into the drafts knowing who you're going to be taking week in and week out, getting you ready to dominate. Doesn't matter how many leagues you're in, this channel is going to be for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, would really help me out. Hit the like button and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about these rankings and these fantasy points per game, what we're going over. But I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.